Welcome to an enthralling recap of Kill Bill Volume 1 and Volume 2. In the film's opening scene, we encounter a bride, distinguishable by her wedding gown, yet she appears injured with visible damage to her nose and mouth. As she's being tended to by a man who wipes the blood from her face with a handkerchief inscribed with Beau, she exhibits fear towards him. However, he reassures her, complimenting her beauty and expressing his unwavering affection, insisting that her appearance won't change his feelings for her. Before the bride can respond, the narrative swiftly shifts from the initial scene to a woman driving a car, revealed to be the bride from earlier. She arrives at a house and is greeted by a woman named Vernita, who reacts strangely upon seeing the bride. Inside, an intense knife fight erupts between the two, marking an unexpected turn in the story. Their battle, fueled by rage, results in significant damage throughout the house. As Vernita's daughter returns from school, both women conceal their knives to avoid alarming the child. Vernita instructs her daughter to stay in her room until called. The bride converses with the daughter, reflecting sadly that if her own daughter were alive, she would be the same age. This reveals a tragedy in the bride's past. Once the child leaves, Vernita pleads with the bride not to kill her in front of her daughter, emphasizing their mutual love and her desire to shield her from such a traumatic event. Vernita expresses concern that her daughter would be forever haunted by witnessing her death. She proposes a sword duel at a stream shore the following night, seeking an alternative to her current predicament. In a tense moment, Vernita questions whether the bride's quest for vengeance will end with her death. The bride denies this, stating her revenge targets only Vernita, not her family, as she lacks the cruelty to harm them. Suddenly, Vernita attempts to ambush the bride with a hidden gun inside a cereal box, but fails as the bride anticipates the attack. The bride throws her knife at Vernita, striking her fatally and ending the confrontation. Meanwhile, the daughter arrives, and the bride approaches the girl, comforting her by saying not to be saddened. She assures the girl that her mother was not a good person, and it was better for her to pass away. Furthermore, the bride expresses her belief that the girl, being young, wouldn't seek revenge on her. Even if the girl did desire to retaliate or inquire about the reason for her mother's killing, the bride invites her to meet in prison. Afterward, the bride exits the scene and settles into her car, reaching for her notebook. Inside, she discovers a list of names, some of which she had already crossed out, including Vernita's name. The crossed out names indicate that the bride had previously killed those individuals, and now she proceeds to cross out Vernita's name as well. The scene transitions to the past. Approximately 4 to 5 years ago, a man is driving his car towards a church where a violent attack has just taken place, resulting in numerous casualties. Upon entering the church, a police officer discovers a young and beautiful girl who is actually the injured bride depicted in the opening scene of the movie. The police officer sits beside her and expresses his sorrow, believing that she has been killed. However, he senses signs of life in her and promptly arranges her to be taken to the hospital. Now, we observe the bride in the hospital, her face no longer stained with blood. During this time, Elle, dressed as a nurse, enters the room, carrying a syringe filled with a poisonous substance. Approaching the bride, the nurse begins the process of injecting the deadly substance into her. Meanwhile, the nurse receives a phone call, inquiring about the progress of the injection. The caller eagerly urges the nurse to hurry up. In response, the nurse informs the caller that she has not yet administered the injection, as the bride is currently unconscious. The caller advises the nurse to wait until the bride regains consciousness before proceeding with the injection. The nurse agrees and promises to administer it later. There is something unsettling about the nurse's demeanor. After the call ends, the nurse departs from the room. As time passes, 4 years go by, and the bride remains in the same state, implying that she has been in a coma since the incident. Consequently, she is paralyzed and unable to experience any sensations. A mosquito lands on the bride, causing her to wake up and sit upright. Memories from her past flood to her mind, including her interrupted wedding, the deadly attack, and her self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. She touches her head, but finds no visible mark, unaware that 4 years have passed since the incident. Struggling to believe her circumstances, the bride lies back down. At that moment, 2 men enter the room. One of them claims to be a doctor, accompanied by a healthy individual. As the doctor approaches, the bride becomes frightened and pushes him, causing him to fall. In the ensuing chaos, she manages to kill him, but falls from the bed herself. Realizing she is unable to walk, the bride discovers that her legs are now paralyzed. Now, she proceeds by crawling, gradually advancing forward. Taking cover behind a door, the bride awaits the arrival of the imposter doctor. Upon his arrival and discovery of the lifeless, healthy individual, he becomes visibly concerned. Seizing the opportunity, the bride stealthily stabs him from behind, causing him to collapse. Swiftly, she closes the door, unintentionally trapping the fake doctor's neck, leading to his demise. Extracting the car key from his pocket, she heads down to the parking lot area. Navigating in a wheelchair, the bride persists in her search for the doctor's vehicle. Despite her immobile feet, she implores them to move, offering self-encouragement. Engaging in an internal dialogue, she exerts great effort in attempting to mobilize her feet. In this manner, she endures a daunting 13-hour period. Finally, after much effort, she manages to move her foot, a significant breakthrough for her. With newfound accuracy, both of her feet begin to move. Gradually, she makes her way to the front seat of the car, positioning herself for what lies ahead. As she drives away, a multitude of visions flood her mind, depicting the faces of all the people who have wronged her in the past. It is their actions that have led to her present circumstances she finds herself in. Among the individuals involved in her tumultuous journey, there were 4 significant figures, 3 girls and a man. Within this group, she recognizes Vernita, as well as the girl she had previously eliminated. In the current scene, the bride seeks out someone capable of teaching her the art of swordsmanship. This decision signifies her dedication to acquiring the necessary skills. The mentor, Hattori Hanzo, is not only knowledgeable, but also crafts a remarkable sword specially for her. Equipped with this weapon, she intends to engage in combat and vanquish her adversaries. However, the task of eliminating the first girl, O-Ren, proves to be no easy feat, as she happens to be a formidable gangster. Nevertheless, the bride refuses to succumb to fear, as her ultimate goal is to exact vengeance upon those who have wronged her. Boarding a plane, she embarks on a journey to another country where O-Ren resides. Aware of the O-Ren's affluence and influence, the bride learns that she now dwells in a hotel. Determined to confront her nemesis, she immediately makes her way to the hotel. However, the high level of security surrounding the premises presents a significant obstacle. Upon her arrival, she notices the presence of O-Ren's assistant, Sophie. Seizing the opportunity, the bride apprehends the assistant and unleashes a torrent of desperate screams, passionately calling out for O-Ren. Despite her efforts, the girl fails to appear. Subsequently, the bride carries out a gruesome act by severing the assistant's hand, eliciting fear among the onlookers. In response, O-Ren arrives at the scene with her gangsters. She commands her trusted confidant to step aside and engage in combat with the bride. In a swift motion, she thrusts her sword into the man, prompting a surge of aggression from the Japanese gangster. The enraged O-Ren orders her followers to converge upon the bride, instructing them to eliminate her. Undeterred, the bride, also a formidable swordsman, deftly wields her weapon, employing masterful spinning techniques. As the adversaries approach, the bride engages in a fierce battle, skillfully dispatching each opponent with her spinning swordplay. Ultimately, only O-Ren remains, her options dwindling. She summons a 17-year-old girl, Gogo, her trusted assistant, to face the bride in combat. Despite her youth, the girl possesses considerable skill in sword spinning. A prolonged and intense duel ensues, but ultimately, the bride emerges victorious. The young girl's eyes begin to bleed, leaving O-Ren perplexed by the bride's unwavering strength. Realizing the magnitude of her opponent's abilities, O-Ren retrieves her own sword, accompanied by the sound of revving motorcycles in the background. She breaks into laughter, taunting the bride with a condescending smile, questioning her audacity to challenge such a formidable gangster. Numerous individuals wearing black masks rally behind the O-Ren, but the bride remains undaunted. She positions her sword to reveal a reflection of her adversaries, indicating her readiness to confront them all. With exceptional skill, the bride deftly maneuvers her spinning sword, dispatching each assailant with precision and efficiency until none remain. Upon turning her gaze, the bride discovers O-Ren's absence. A sense of trepidation may briefly cross her mind. Exiting the hotel, the bride finds O-Ren waiting outside in the snowy surroundings. They engage in a fierce battle against each other, their clash punctuated by the wintry backdrop. Initially, O-Ren inflicts harm upon the bride, but the bride remains calm and observant. She waits for the opportune moment to strike, biding her time until her adversary grows weary. Finally, the moment arrives when O-Ren attempts another attack, only to be met with a swift and decisive counterattack from the bride. In a first ever successful strike, the bride stabs her opponent. Then, with a powerful swing of her sword, she decapitates O-Ren, causing her head to land some distance away away in the snow, the bride has achieved her goal of killing O-Ren. Following this victory, the bride tends to her injured assistant, whose hand had been previously severed. Blood continues to flow from the assistant's wound. Dismissing her assistant, the bride casts her out into the snowy surroundings. It becomes clear to us that Bill is the mastermind behind these events, the one who issued the command. Consequently, the bride boards an aeroplane again, preparing to journey to another location. There, she inscribes 5 names in her notebook, titling it the Death List. This signifies her intent to eliminate 5 individuals. The first name on the list is O-Ren, followed by Vernita in the 2nd position, while Bill holds the 5th spot. Bill, as the leader of the group, orchestrated the bride's injury. Now, it becomes evident that the bride will not spare any of them. Here, let's move to the next Kill Bill film, Volume 2. The movie opens with a woman grievously wounded by a gunshot to the head, delivered by a man known as Bill. Behind the wheel of a car, she reveals her 4-year coma and her burning desire for vengeance. Her journey is fueled by this quest for retribution, with Bill as her final mark. Along the way, she confesses to eliminating numerous others in her path. Then, it shifts, and we're taken to the Two Pines Wedding Chapel in El Paso, Texas, where brides are selecting their wedding dresses. Reverend Harmony and his spouse, Jeannie Epper, suggest that in the absence of the bride's family, guests of the groom can choose seats on either side of the aisle. Frustrated by Jeannie Epper's meddling, the bride steps out of the chapel for a breather. Lured by the melody of a bamboo flute, she finds Bill seated on a porch, immersed in his music. He inquires about her profession and expresses curiosity about her partner, Tommy. She speaks fondly of her job at Tommy's record shop and her love for it. Bill expresses a desire to meet Tommy, and she pleads with him to be kind, to which he agrees to try his best. Upon entering the venue, she introduces Bill as her father to her soon-to-be husband, although he declines the offer to walk her down the aisle. Still, Bill is eager to attend the ceremony as part of the audience. As Reverend Harmony summons the couple, she shares a tender kiss with Bill. Outside, a quartet of black-clad assassins arrives, advancing in formation towards the chapel. They burst in and unleash a barrage of gunfire, sparing only the bride and Bill amidst the chaos. In the past, Bill pays a visit to his younger brother Bud, who is known as Sidewinder, at his trailer located in a remote area. During their conversation, Bill cautions Bud about the bride. The main character has eliminated a notorious criminal gang, and if Bud doesn't permit Bill to safeguard him, the bride will take his life. While they talk, Bud, who is drinking, jests about the bride deserving her vengeance. This statement angers Bill as Bud confesses to having pawned the valuable samurai sword, a gift from Bill, for a mere $250. Consequently, Bud no longer possesses a weapon for self-defense. Although they have had disagreements in the past, they must now put those aside and move forward. Despite this, Bud rejects his older brother's offer for assistance. It turns out that Bud, a bouncer at a strip club, is late to work and finds the place empty. After a brief chat with bartender Jay, he's reprimanded by his boss, Larry Gomez, for his tardiness. Larry, irate, suspends Bud's shifts and tells him not to return until called. He also mocks Bud's hairstyle. Bud then gets tasked by dancer Rocket to clean up an overflow in the bathroom. Afterward, he makes his way back to his trailer. Yet, as he stands in front of it, he comes to a halt and gazes into the distance. Upon entering the trailer, his attention remains fixed on the window. Unbeknownst to him, the bride has been concealed beneath the trailer, clinging to the wall to avoid detection. When she opens the door, Bud takes aim and fires a shot from his salt-loaded rifle, striking her in the chest. Satisfied with his actions, he administers a sedative to the wounded bride lying on the ground. He proceeds to grab a beer and contacts El Driver, requesting $1 million for the bride's Hattori Hanzo sword. El agrees to deliver the money early the next morning and instructs him to subject the bride to severe torture until she meets her demise. A few hours later, Bud and an accomplice dig a deep hole in the ground with the intention of burying the injured bride alive. Once the hole is prepared, a choice is presented to the bride. If she remains silent, she will be given a flashlight, but if she protests, Bud will spray her eyes and bury her alive in the darkness. Electing the flashlight, the bride is then placed inside a coffin. Bud discloses that he is carrying out these actions for the sake of his brother, sealing the lid of the coffin and securing it with nails. They walk away after lowering the coffin and covering it with soil. Then, here a flashback shows Bill and his enamored bride by a fire in China. As he plays his flute, he speaks of his ancient kung fu master, Pai Mei, and his lethal 5-point palm technique. technique, which involves striking 5 precise points on the body with the fingertips to cause the heart to explode. After taking a few steps, the victim's heart suddenly explodes. Bill, having just returned from visiting the elderly martial arts master Pai Mei in a remote part of China, tells the bride that Pai Mei has agreed to take her as his student as he is old and lonely. Bill warns the bride not to show any disrespect or disobedience to Pai Mei, as he hates Caucasians, despises Americans, and has contempt for women. The bride goes to meet Pai Mei, only to be mocked and humiliated by him for her fighting skills and nationality. Pai Mei challenges her to land a single blow against him in hand-to-hand combat, which she is unable to do. At a certain moment, the bride makes an attempt to utilize a large rock, but Bud swiftly disposes of it by deflecting her wrist. He threatens to sever her hand in a single stroke and claims ownership of it, insisting that she must strengthen it. Over the following weeks, the protagonist toils diligently, engaging in martial arts practices, lugging buckets of water up lengthy and steep staircases, and acquiring the skill of eating with chopsticks. Returning to the present moment while still confined within the coffin, the bride successfully removes her boots and the belt that binds her feet. Extracting a razor from her boot, she frees her hands. Initially, she examines the planks of the coffin lid in search of a vulnerable spot, and then repeatedly strikes it with her fist. As the wooden planks give way, they become stained with her blood. It's as if she's swimming through the soil. Finally free, the bride takes in a breath of fresh air. She walks into a diner, her appearance marked by mud and dust, and calmly requests a glass of water. Then it shifts, and Ellie makes her way to Bud's trailer to fulfill her end of the deal and purchase the promised samurai sword. Upon entering the trailer, she hands Bud a red suitcase filled with money. In the distance, we catch a glimpse of the relentless bride steadily approaching the trailer. Meanwhile, as Elle examines the blade, Bud nonchalantly prepares margaritas using a grimy blender and serves them in filthy jelly glasses. In a display of arrogance, Bud proceeds to recount how he took the life of the bride, who, it should be noted, is also an adversary of Elle. Opening the suitcase, he revels in the sight of the money, only to be struck in the face by a venomous black mamba snake concealed within the cash. Before Bud meets his demise, Elle expresses her regret that he was the only one who ended the bride's life, acknowledging that she deserved a more fitting fate. Elle promptly contacts Bill and informs him of the bride's act of vengeance, disclosing that she, in turn, eliminated the bride. Elle proceeds to divulge the burial location of the bride, namely Paula Schultz's grave, and for the first time mentions the bride's true name, Beatrix Kiddo. As Elle prepares to depart, the bride intervenes and launches an immediate attack. Their intense and prolonged struggle takes a toll on the trailer, causing significant damage. In the midst of their duel, Elle seizes the bride's sword. The bride stumbles upon another katana in a golf bag, bearing a message from Bill to Bud, revealing Bud's deceit about selling it. Curious, the bride questions what Elle said to Pai Mei that led to her losing an eye. Elle admits to insulting him as a wretched old man and confesses to poisoning his beloved fish heads, causing his death. Elle relishes the thought of defeating the bride with her own weapon. Yet, when they clash, the bride rips out Elle's other eye and crushes it under her foot. Choosing not to end her life, the bride leaves the trailer as Elle is left flailing. Turns out that the bride pays a visit to Esteban Vallejo, one of Bill's former mentors and a retired pimp, with the intention of extracting information about Bill's whereabouts. It becomes evident to Esteban that she is the same woman whom Bill had shot in the head, although he never anticipated her survival. Esteban ultimately discloses Bill's location, confessing that he is waiting for her. Upon easily acquiring this information, the bride smiles, assuming that Esteban is simply afraid of meeting his own demise. Subsequently, she drives to Bill's residence. Approaching his hacienda cautiously, she keeps her firearm at the ready. However, her emotions overcome her when she witnesses Bill and their young daughter, Bibi, engaging in playful activities with toy guns, something of which she had been completely unaware. The bride finds herself taken aback, but eventually joins them for dinner. During the meal, Bill openly shares with Bibi that he shot her mother due to his anger when she left him and entered into a relationship with another man. As the evening progresses, the bride spends quality time with her daughter, who eventually drifts into a peaceful slumber. She steps out to confront Bill. As she reaches for the sword above the TV, he shoots a warning. He then hits her with a dart filled with truth serum and waits for it to work. Confused, he sees her as an innate killer, unchangeable at her core. Under the serum's influence, she confesses to finding finding pleasure in her vengeful killings. He probes about her concealed pregnancy, and she recounts a tale. In a flashback, on a mission in Japan, she discovers she's expecting while in her hotel room. Another assassin, Karen Kim, blasts through the door with her rifle. Facing Karen's barrel, the bride discloses her pregnancy and urges Karen to verify with the test. She convinces Karen to leave, promising to quit her assassin life. Back in the present, he confronts her about the reason behind her departure, and she reveals that her intention was to protect their child from the path of violence and bloodshed that their lives entailed. She didn't want their child to grow up as a murderer like them. They agree to engage in a sword fight on the beach, but unexpectedly, he strikes her while they are seated on his patio. In response, she executes the five-pointed palm method, a lethal technique that causes the heart to explode. Afterward, they sit down to have one final conversation. During their discussion, she clarifies that she never disclosed her training under Pai Mei because she acknowledges herself as an unpleasant individual. Overwhelmed by emotions, she breaks down, sobbing on the bathroom floor for Bill, while their daughter Bibi watches cartoons in their hotel room. And so, it concludes. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.